they ruled on compensation through colleges for players. But in the opinion written by the justices, they said, hey, and by the way, the rest of the NCAA compensation rules unrelated to education are not at issue here and therefore remain on the books. They then said that they also would come up in serious and create serious questions about the antitrust laws. So the NCAA, under the current bylaws, even what was not ruled on by the Supreme Court,
been put on notice.
They have been put on notice that they are not above the law, and they're likely to get the same result if someone sues for a different reason involving name, image, likeness outside of education-related payment. They're terrified of it because it was a 9-0 decision, and they know that they're going to lose again based on the current bylaws. So it's not that they ruled that, it's a wide open market. It's that they were straight up told in a quote from the opinion of one of the justices that the NCAA is not above the law and that the issues that still remain on the books raise serious questions under antitrust laws. Meaning we're not ruling on them because it has not been brought in front of the court. But by the way, there's still questions about them that we would have to discuss if it's brought our way.
Yeah, I
and
think
if you
Justice
came
Kavanaugh
here, you're probably losing
that opinion.
They're terrified of it. And that's why when they read through this, they took a step back in June, like the final week in June, the second to final week in June, whenever it was, and said, you guys handle it how you see fit because we can't get sued. We can't lose this.
So how do they have the stones now to do this? Because
it's not
paused?
This is no different how I read this. To me, this is one AD.
Rick George.
Yeah, but
he's
at Colorado.
He's asking for help in enforcing it.
And he's the one that put his name to it. So again, I appreciate that. It's not some, anonymity that's been granted because they're talking, behind closed doors here. So I appreciate that Rick George is coming out and speaking against it, if in fact he's against it. But I haven't seen a plan that says that their existing bylaws are legal. And I haven't seen anyone step forward that wants to lead them down that path. So all this is look at the SEC and look at these conferences or teams,
USC
universities
is a big part of this with
that
Jordan
are
Addison.
able to really cash in right now. And meanwhile, we're losing players. I get it. It's not great. But tell me what you do in response to it that is within the framework of what the Supreme Court said last year.
Yeah, it's going to lead you back to court. And a lower level court will have heard what the Supreme Court said, and it won't make it that far this time.
So Rick George said that he cited that NIL collectives are violating deals by lining up deals for players before they sign with programs. College leaders are proposing retroactive NIL punishments. They're calling for NCAA enforcement to enforce new rules or, quote, or else. That's from the report here in Sports Illustrated. Again, I see this and I think, okay, I see the worry and I see the or else, and I'm thinking, or else they're not going to, we're going to lose the foothold of what the NCAA currently has across college football, basketball, the whole thing. But I don't see any ideas that turn into a framework of a new structure for this moving forward.
Or else Colorado is going to become even less relevant than it's been.
I also see the Big 12 represented here through Rick George and others. I see ideas coming out of the Big 10 through Ohio State.
Pac-12 with Colorado, you mean?
Yeah, Pac-12 with Colorado. I see things with the Big 10, right, at their spring meetings. But then I see the SEC and the Pac-12 commissioner on Capitol Hill yesterday instead of out in Arizona where all this information's coming out.
Yeah, they're not at the...
So you tell me who's carrying the weight here and what the two groups are doing in their meetings. Because one's speaking out on behalf of the NCAA having more power, and I see two commissioners gaining the power on Capitol Hill.
They're not sitting around the Scottsdale, Arizona Hilton bitching about teams spending money. They're on Capitol Hill working to find some common ground. This was from, I mentioned Pat Forty earlier today. This is a text from Pat Forty earlier. Text from someone in the NCAA compliance space on enforcing the collective recruiting tampering landscape. Quote, this is from the NCAA. The student athletes that were getting these alleged offers from these collectives will probably be getting phone calls from enforcement to have a sit down. Their eligibility wouldn't be impacted, but they'll be asked to spill the beans, and they would be mandated to cooperate. How is the NCAA going to mandate them to cooperate?
No, exactly.
I mean, I pick up the phone, answered, hey, it's the NCAA. Did you talk to this collective? Nope. And hang up the phone. I mean, what they don't have subpoena power.
And when does that phone call take place? We could be in the year 2040 and still
also,
waiting on
their eligibility wouldn't be impacted, right? So then what's the point?
What's the point? Exactly.
And also, if the NCAA was actually going to, you're not talking to us, you're ineligible to play college sports. I mean, give me a break.
That'd be a revolution.
They've done some crazy things before that I think there's no way the NCAA would take this public lashing by making this decision, and they still do it. So it would not surprise me if they try to big time some high school kids that have agreed to some deal into something. But, I mean, if I'm a parent, a coach, anyone associated with these prospects, I'm telling the NCAA to get lost. I'm not talking to them about anything if they give me a call.
Coaches too, right? I mean, a degree.
Coach, absolutely.
Everyone. I mean, you're not.
Well, based on the structure here, the coaches would not have. There should be no paper trail because
they're not involved with the.
It's very direct with the
coaches
with the
can say. I mean, they are willfully ignorant
of the collective.
Yeah, you want plausible deniability, so they're not getting into the weeds with these collectives on what they're doing or what they're up to. They allow them to go do their work. They, through an intermediary, will say, hey, this player's really into NIL as opposed to this guy, so let's talk to him because we really want them. You know, give the sign-off on a few prospects they really want or transfers, and then the NIL goes to work. So the coach could come back to the NCAA, yeah, I'll sit down for an interview. I don't know anything about it. This player was interested in NIL, that's all I know. But we don't talk about that because we can't. And now, they would be telling the truth.
Where they can move forward, like, There needs to be a structure in place where when you sign, there is some type of contractual agreement that keeps you there
on the portal, out of the portal.
Well, you can go to the portal, but there needs to be some type of penalty where you have to sit out or do something to instead of that would keep or you're not allowed as a collective to recruit the player who then signs with a different NIL collective. The collective would be the NIL group that's representing a certain program. Because that's where, I mean, if you're an NFL player and you're under contract, you can't just have there's a tampering aspect to another team coming in and talking with your agent. Right? So you
can't lure me into the portal.
There needs to be a structure, a framework there where you can't just sign something and say, "Oh man, it's been 34 days, and I can get $100 more at the other place, so I'm going to go to the other dealership now."
Yeah, so there's
you can't do that.
Preventative measure from.
I say you can't. I don't know if you can.
From being lured into the portal.
But I don't know how I don't know how you stop the collectives moving forward with what is completely legal now in states. What we saw governing bodies across the country, Chad mentioned California, but I mean, Alabama quickly came, Tennessee is another one where they quickly came to I mean, there were, what's legal now state by state and federally, what the Supreme Court is saying. I don't know how the NCAA now says 10 months later, oh, we're going to retroactively go back. No, you're not, because your bylaws, they're already telling you without even ruling on it that your bylaws violate antitrust law.
There has to be something, though, that's big enough, some threshold on what you're talking about that's big enough that would take us back to you've got to sit out a year. If you want to go, if the collective is pulling you, if it's not a football-related decision, something like that.
I mean, I honestly,
you've got to sit a year.
No, it's not even sit a year. Forget the NCAA. They're not going to be able to do anything on this. These kids want to be grown up and make a lot of money, so they sign a contract. You agree to go to Alabama, and you agree to get paid $400,000 a year, and you're a 5-star, great. Sign right here before your scholarship papers. Go ahead. Sign the contract. And if you want to play some game and not fulfill your obligation and try to leave school or do whatever, you owe us this amount. You're not going to enter the portal and go somewhere else. You owe us this. And guess what? It's for the kid, too. If someone's talking big and offering all this money, they owe you that money if you go to that school.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, I'm honestly for more regulation with it, where there's actual paperwork.